You're listening to Subconscious Mind Mastery. Thomas Miller back with you again, and I wanted to bring the spotlight of the podcast closer to home. There are some amazing people doing consciousness work in this Roaring Fork Valley where I live in Colorado, and I wanted to introduce you to some of the folks that I've met. And today we're talking to Laura Barton. Now, Laura lives outside of Glenwood Springs, which is kind of at the one end of this Roaring Fork Valley, and Aspen is at the other. Her website is SourceLightintegrations.com. And Laura does a particular non-touch technique. Now, you want to say, is it like Reiki? In a sense, yes, but in a big sense, no, because this is, I guess you could say, Reiki on steroids type of thing, but it's a non-touch technique. And she will explain more of what this is exactly, but it's affecting all of the components of a person's energy. Now, some years ago, Laura had a series of consecutive 1, 2, 3 deaths in her life, including her late husband. And that was a catalyst for her, obviously, to seek healing. And that led her to a healing modality that involves working with these components of energy. And after being trained in that and then developing her own style through that, she now does sessions in her Glenwood Springs office and also remotely, because energy is energy, right? So when we connected, she did a session on me. And we brought the microphones along and talked about what she was doing before the session. Then I got up on her table for about an hour or so. She did the procedure on me, and then we talked about that in a debriefing. So let's first meet Laura, and she's going to give us a perspective on what is going to happen, and then we'll talk about the after effect. This is Laura Barton.
What I do is I access a unique, to me, bandwidth of energy, light, and information, and I just simply direct it into a person's energy field. You can call it almost like an energy massage if you want. It's non-touch. You know, I don't care how many different gemstones you wear or if you have your phone on you or watch.
Wow.
You know, because it's not affected by that. Whereas a lot of people, and I appreciate other forms of healing work, you know, you need to remove your jewelry. You need to not make sure that you don't have a watch on and all that. So this is much different. Basically, everyone's experience is unique to them as they are within themselves in that very moment. Typically, 1 to 3 sessions of the healing aspect of this work is recommended for a given condition, but my passion is doing what's called the reconnection. And I've been doing it since 2012. I was led to it. The reconnection is where I access the bandwidth and I direct it specifically into points and lines on and around the body, and in essence, tie you into or reconnect you to the universal grid, where all things that no longer serve you fall away, making space for the transformation that we're all going through and the new things that are going to move you forward in life to come in.
What is different about this from other energy procedures that are similar?
Well, it's interesting that you would ask. I work primarily on practitioners of other modalities, and Reiki people are the most fun because they look at me and they go, "What the heck was that?" Because there is a familiar component, and that's the energy. But this is much more complete. It's not just the energy. It's the energy, it's the light, it's the frequency, the vibration, if you will. I had a Reiki master, she'd been a Reiki master for over 20 years, get up off my table and say, "You know what, that's like Reiki times 3. Mm-hmm. And another lady said, like Reiki on steroids. So, you know, it is deeper, it's broader, it's more intense. And that's why I'm saying each session is as individualized for the person at that moment in time as it could possibly be.
I've noticed this through the coaching work that I've been doing recently, and I know you see it with the clients that you work on. All of us, every one of us, our energy gets out of balance. Why?
Because there is, in my opinion, there is such an influx of energetic influence through our atmosphere and coming up through the earth as we shift with earth into, some people like to view it as a different dimensional state or a different vibrational state, however you want to call it, that it's throwing everyone off balance, including our body structure, and that is huge. This is an opportunity. This moment in time is an opportunity for people to finally purge and clear everything that's been holding them back and move forward as effectively as possible. And that's what I have found my work to do based on what my clients' feedback.
So this is more, you're plugging into a global energy movement, as well as, obviously it all boils down to we as individuals as well, affecting that global energy.
Well, and it goes even beyond that. So we know that the body has meridian lines, all right?
Sure.
That flow into the ley lines of the earth, right?
Sure.
It goes beyond that. Those ley lines flow out into a universal grid, not the matrix, well beyond that.
Okay.
So
Makes sense.
that's what you're realigning with and ties you back into that. It's amazing.
I did an audiobook, listeners to the podcast know, Parallel Universes of Self, written by Fred Dodson, where he talks about infinite realities, infinite numbers of possibilities. It's what you've just said, beyond the matrix. In an infinite reality, there are no bounds.
That's absolutely accurate. Timelines don't exist as we've come to know them throughout our history here.
So what I'm understanding is that you're aligning physical energy here, present, today, with all of that infinity of realities.
I simply access and direct source into a person's energy field, and it does exactly what they need to help them move forward in that time, whether it's help to balance the chakras, whether it's releasing physical blockages or coagulations. It could be, it's again as unique to the individual at that moment in time as they are. And the beauty of this work is I keep myself completely out of it. I don't have an agenda other than just to access and direct. That's it.
You have me so interested in this. We're going to do your procedure. We're going to do this work and then come back and talk about it.
Wonderful.
I am fascinated about techniques like this where energy can be both read and shifted. So I got on her table, which is just like a massage table or a Reiki table, and she did the procedure. I didn't know what she was doing because my head was down, first of all. Eyes were closed, and then she was manipulating or doing the procedure with her hands. I can tell you it was extremely relaxing. But from an energy perspective, even though I could kind of sense where her hands were, I wasn't sure exactly what was going on. So afterwards, we talked about it. Wow. Okay. You have my attention.
Thank you.
That was, how do I say, relaxing. But in the relaxing, I could definitely feel and tell the energy was moving.
That's common.
Now, we've had it's been a few minutes since I've been off of the table, and Laura and I've had a debriefing session. But reconstructing this, I really felt a lot of initial work going on around my head. In fact, it seemed like, correct me if I'm wrong, that you were over the crown or back of the head area, and then you were kind of working around here. I could just feel that. But it seems like you were up there quite a bit.
I was actually, when I begin with a client on the table, I start at the crown and I work down to the tops of the shoulders, and then I come back out through the crown area. And then I start again at the crown and I go down the right side and out the right foot. And then I come back to the head and I do the same thing going out the left foot. And then I have a beautiful little pattern, if you will, that I do from the left foot on up and over the body through the crown and then back down out through the right.
Now, you're working on energy.
Energy, light, and information. Call it vibration, if you will.
And you can do that in person like we did, but you can also do it remotely.
Absolutely.
Energy is energy.
Yes.
So with this process, you have an acuity to connect with somebody, even if they're not physically in front of you.
Sure. I've been working with distance clients since 2013 when I moved to Colorado from the Pacific Northwest.
In fact, not to just overemphasize this, but you were working with a particular family member this week remotely.
Yes, this morning, my son, I opened up my laptop and my son was in distress in Oregon, and I found myself doing an emergency session with him at 7 a.m.
So it is totally possible to replicate what we've done here today and are reviewing now remotely.
For sure.
So when you move down the body, then you're feeling, moving, connecting, and what are you doing with the energy specifically?
I'm just accessing and directing the complete bandwidth, which is what sets this work apart, and allowing it to go where it's supposed to go, to do what it's supposed to do. The beauty of this is I keep myself clear out of it. I go into, I call the zone, right?
You.
Yes.
Not just the person.
No, I go into the zone. I just access and direct. I observe the body. I notice anything on or around the body, perhaps in the chakras that hold my attention. Interestingly enough, I may be held over a part of the body and never know why, but I cannot physically move forward until it has received what it was to receive through me. I'm just simply the facilitator. When a person comes into the office and completes the intake form, all it is the contact information and then a blank space where you can write your issues and concerns, because I respect the fact that you've come to me for a purpose, but really I don't pay an awful lot of attention to what you've noted, because I want to do the work as non-directionally as possible. Towards the end of the session, however, I do go back and target anything specific, like if you had an old knee injury that you wanted some additional focus on.
Okay. So you can target specific body manifestations of energetic issues.
Absolutely.
Okay. So you were around my head longer than normal. What would you suspect that might indicate?
It's, a lot of times it's a stress response or that a person is going through that I'm picking up on, or they're processing through some changes emotionally or mentally that, just kind of stuck a little bit.
And you're not as much interpreting as just experiencing what's there.
Absolutely. I don't want to interpret. I am not, although I have had some medical training with Ski Patrol, which is EMT basic years ago.
Quite a bit.
I don't interpret. I may ask you, hey, did you have something happen with your big toe? I could feel something there, and it may be something from the childhood that you had totally forgotten even happened until I say something about your big toe. everyone's different.
Sure. So what did you note? What were some other things other than working around the head area there? What else did you note from this session?
Well, bear with me if I'm going to read from my notes, because as I'm writing them, other things will come to mind that I noticed as well.
You just free flow, girl. You go.
I do well with that. Thank you. So, what I noticed, of course, was I was held over the head about twice as long as is typical in a session. And then when I was at the right shoulder, before I went back up through the crown, I noticed a very white twinkle at your left ear. I noticed some swallowing. And then as I went back up through the head and started down the right side, I saw some movement in the fingers on your right hand, and then actually the hand itself, as well as the left foot. I was held over your heart, and I felt that the heart chakra had really opened up. I was also held over the center of your abdomen, perhaps the solar plexus chakra, because I sensed some heaviness lighten. When I went back to the head and then going down the left side, I saw a dark blip of energy at your right hip go out when I was at your left shoulder. And then there was also a white twinkle over your heart. There was some left hand movement, right hand movement, and I noticed that you caught yourself beginning to snore and stopped a couple times, which is a huge compliment to the work if someone gets that deeply relaxed.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So there was some more left foot movement. And then when I was at the left foot, I realized that from the beginning of going down your right side, I was grinning. I kept noticing that throughout the session, that I was grinning. Thomas, you have a joyous soul, very passionate, and it was a very pleasant experience from my perspective.
My goodness. Thank you.
You're
Thank you very much.
You're so welcome.
And that was all just from, you don't know me.
No.
What does you mentioned the involuntary movements, let's say, the twitching of the hand, the twitching of a foot, a leg moving. What does that indicate?
My understanding is that is energy releasing.
Releasing, okay, that
Yes.
would make sense.
Yes.
Sure, that would make total sense.
Sure. And some people have very dramatic physical responses.
You're talking jerking almost.
Oh, yes. Yes. You know, they could be more subtle. They could be extremely visible. And then again, some people, I may not see anything occurring in their physical self at all. And then after the session, they tell me, oh my gosh, that was off the chart, and describe this incredible experience that they've had, which I have absolutely no basis of knowledge for. So again, and I can't stress it enough, the work is as individual as the individual themselves at that moment in time.
Now, you and I both know when you start moving energy around, that shifts not only us internally, but it shifts the outside manifestation of our lives. Things change.
True.
When we change the energy, things shift in front of us. Reality changes. I read these audiobooks for Fred Dodson. His whole thing is reality creation. And a lot of that is through an energetic change. So what would you say might and I know you're not predicting the future, but what are some things that might happen, or what are some things that you've seen happen to other people after a session?
You know, again, it's so diverse. There's been a number of people that have wanted to share their experience, and so I have a host of testimonials on my website, SourceLightIntegrations.com. And I had one woman, a yoga teacher, because I do a lot of work in the Central Bay or the Central Coast area of California.
Oh, my.
Oh, yeah. And I had her comment that she noticed that the trees, the bark on the trees seemed more vibrant and alive. I thought that was beautiful. The colors were more full and complex. I had one lady that the first session she noticed a lot of shifting, kind of the things type of things that you described, and she commented that it was powerful work. The first session of the reconnection, however, and I always tell people to be cautious as they're driving after a session.
I could tell that.
Well, especially around the peripheral vision.
Yes.
But she noticed that she was very altered. And after the third session, which didn't seem as profound to her as the second, and that too is common, she noticed some of the things in her life just simply change. She came into a space vibrationally that she had never been before. And she had the master teacher that she'd been hoping to find at some point in her life all of a sudden came into her awareness. What she was to do next with her career came into her awareness. She developed an entirely new aspect of her practice, and she attributes that to the fact that this work takes you to a different vibrational level. It helps you remove any blockages or coagulations in your energetic and physical body so that you can embrace the new that's coming in, or that's just waiting to come in, that you may not even have a clue was there.
Okay, you just triggered something. I did a podcast on moon cycles and creating and releasing around the 2 cycles of the moon. So creating on the new moon and then following that through, not just one day of the new moon, but following that through for 2 weeks. And then as that creating cycle ends, completing that, and then starting the releasing cycle on the full moon and following that for 2 weeks. And then I actually burned my releasing list on the sunset before the new moon, of the sunset of the day of the new moon up on Independence Pass.
Wonderful.
Very cool. Now, I had a listener write me saying that he had observed that 4 days before the full moon and 4 days after the full moon, that all kinds of things, he's documented a number of things that have happened, quote unquote, around the full moon, 4 days on either side. We are now within 4 days of the full moon, the July 2017 full moon.
That's interesting. I just happened to look at the calendar yesterday, or last night actually, because I felt something pending. And I thought, almost feels like a full moon. So it's interesting that you would bring that up.
So I'm going to be real interested. Not that I didn't even think about it until we were just talking here, that we did this session within this 4-day bracket. You didn't know about this email that this listener had sent about the 4 days on either side.
No.
So we'll just play with this and see what happens.
Well,
I have a pretty good manifesting list.
Great. And I'm excited that we're going to keep in touch.
Oh yeah, sure.
For sure, because it'll be delightful to see what comes of this full moon with you because of your sensitivity to that, your awareness of that. That a lot of none of my clients have ever mentioned that correlation before, so I'm fascinated to hear what this means for you.
Yeah, we'll have to see where this goes, and not to say that you can't do this work at any time during the month, but if you happen to catch the window around the full moon, just saying. Or maybe the block is around releasing. You might want to do it during the new moon. I don't know.
So flexibility is one of the most important aspects of what I do. That's why I work with clients around the globe. Distance, in person. I have a new hospice client coming aboard tomorrow. And the beauty of this work in that kind of a situation is it's all about release and transformation for all of us, but on so many different and diverse levels. So to be able to help someone transition at this point in their life is an incredible.
Oh,
It's just incredible.
to do that energetically
Hmm.
would be wonderful, and bless them for reaching out to you.
I am the one I feel that's blessed with the experience to be able to help them move forward. Some of my people that I work with in a hospice situation choose to stick around longer. You know, they're able to release some of whatever is has built up and has put them there, and it gives them another opportunity to express something or address something.
Let's boil this down. If somebody is experiencing blank, they should contact you. That's a broad one.
That is a broad one, and the blank is as broad as a person's experience. It could be stress. It could be. I just did some pre and post op work on a lady in West Virginia last week. Um, it could be a tooth, like with my son this morning, a wisdom tooth that all of a sudden decided to come in. I did some distance work with a small child in Texas with a blood disorder that the doctors could not figure out whatsoever. A toddler that wasn't gaining weight, that wasn't toddling,
Ooh.
and I did some distance work with him, and he started to improve the next day. And when the mother got him to back to the physicians, because he got color, he developed an appetite, he became verbal, as much as a toddler is going to be. They
Mm-hmm.
could find nothing wrong. There's no explanation. I've worked on cases of infection that has had a person in ICU, for example, and after a couple of sessions, it's cleared. It's so broad. I've been asked repeatedly by my web designer or by people that help me with how to share this message to narrow it down. I don't limit myself. I don't limit this work, and I believe that everybody has things going on within their self or selves that this work will benefit on one level or another. It's all about the awareness that I am available to help with this work and the willingness to from the client to just simply allow what will happen to happen.
You and I are also involved in a little bit of a project here that we've been interested in mutually to advance this message as part of people coming to the Roaring Fork Valley on vacation, passing through on I-70, whatever it happens to be. So if people are in Glenwood Springs, they can come see you and experience this in person.
Certainly.
So how would people get in touch?
Well, they can always go to my website, SourceLight Integrations with an S.com. I maintain an office here in Glenwood Springs, but I do have a high quality portable table that I can go to location if someone is, unable to get in and they're not quite sure about distance work.
And you do work on the West Coast
I do.
specifically.
I do quarterly. I go out to the Central California coast, and I have clients from Carmel
Mhm.
to San Francisco. And then I go typically spend some time at Mount Shasta and work with people there
Ooh, perfect.
or do distance work from there
Love it.
on people wherever they may be.
Love that. Shasta is a special, special place.
Yes, it is.
Time for me to go back. I need to go revisit Shasta again. All right, very good. Thank you so much. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for being vulnerable and just letting it out there and for exposing us to this work that you've been blessed to know how to do, learn how to do.
Thank you. is truly my pleasure.
The takeaways for me from this procedure are obviously that energy is the basis of everything we do, everything we are, everything around us. And when our energy is in balance, we operate in a more blissful state. We are just more in balance. Our energy level is higher, and we are more open then to receive things from that higher source of energy. So it literally affects what comes into our lives. When our energy is not in balance, when there is a disruption in our energy field, then we're not as blissful. And there can be disturbances in that energy that attract or open up for attraction more negative things. So this becomes, if you will, a portal, not only for how we feel emotionally and physically, but is the door through which things come into our lives. Now, what happened to me personally after this treatment? Well, number one, I had about an hour drive or a little bit more back home. And during that drive, there was just a sense of peace. And remember, this was non-touch. So this isn't from like a good massage. This is energetic peace. And then almost right after that, this process that I've been using, this subconscious clearing technique that I've been using in the coaching practice, came right into my lap. And things have just taken an upward turn. And I could definitely use that as a marker of part of the process of that shift. But just from what we know that when your energy is in balance and when you're operating from a higher level of energy, good things are going to come into your life. So thank you, Laura, for introducing me to your work and for sharing it with us. And if you would like to contact her, the email is laura@sourcelightintegrations.com. And if you just go to the website piece, sourcelightintegrations.com, the contact information is there as well. Thank you for letting us share this with you today. Stay in balance in your energy so that you can enjoy the journey. I'm Thomas Miller. Thanks for listening.